not know. Welcome to the Sales History Podcast, bringing the brilliant and sometimes strange minds, methods, and ideas from the sales profession's past with applications to today. Here is your host, best-selling author of The Transparency Sale and The Transparent Sales Leader, keynote speaker, trainer, and nerd, Todd Caponi.
I read a lot of old books. As I've joked, my wife is a saint for putting up with me scanning eBay and Abe Books and grabbing just about anything I can find from the early 1900s, the late 1800s on sales and sales leadership. And for the most part, those authors, those writers, they made up the foundation for our great profession. And wow, could they write? The writing is so much better than the writing of today. As I had also joked about, Book Authority had my first book, The Transparency Sale, listed at one point as the 6th best sales book of all time. Now, while very humbling, it's also complete crap. There is no way I do not stand a chance against these writers from the early 1900s. Now, with that, in all of these books, you know you're going to find some weird ideas, weird concepts, weird methods out there. And so for today's episode, I just wanted to share a collection of 10 of those odd quotes on everything from bowel movements to your thyroid to your ability to fight that made up these fine individuals' thoughts about what led to success in sales. So let's start with the first three. Yes, William S. Sadler, who was an advocate for the role of health as it relates to sales performance, he makes up 30% of this list. Now, there's nothing strange about the idea of the role of health as it relates to sales performance. As a matter of fact, that's very admirable, and I'm all in on that. But in his 1923 book, What a Salesman Should Know About His Health, a few of his ideas struck me as both odd and pretty funny. So here were three of those quotes or ideas. The first one, and this one might be my favorite, is, I can take many a mediocre salesman. If nature has just endowed him with a moderate amount of gray matter, then if I can train the fellow how to eat sanely and have 2 good bowel movements a day, then look out, something is going to happen. So eat well, be healthy, those 2 good bowel movements a day. That was, according to Sadler, one of the most important KPIs a successful salesperson could have. So that was number 1. Number 2 was that Sadler was all about what he called the ductless glands, which in just doing some research, that appears to be referring to the endocrine system, which is essentially responsible for the systems throughout the body that secretes things into your bloodstream. In quote number 2, he said, one salesman may be a howling success because his ductless glands are working just right, or maybe over-secreting a trifle. Another works hard, turns out a dismal failure, just because his ductless glands fall down on him. All right, so the ductless glands to him, super important point. And then he goes on to say specifically that he points all success to what he believed to be the most important gland of all, the thyroid. And so quote number 3 is this. Some investigators think the thyroid is the governor, regulator, and dictator of evolution. One thing we can be sure of, it is the governor, regulator, and dictator of all that pertains to successful salesmanship. Let's throw out all the stuff that we read, all the things on LinkedIn. It's about having 2 good bowel movements, getting those ductless glands optimized, and then, of course, the thyroid. Again, as he said, it is the governor, regulator, and dictator of all that pertains to successful salesmanship. Again, that is from William S. Sadler from his 1923 book, What a Salesman Should Know About His Health. Those are the top 3 quotes to start with. Let's go on to number 4. During the 1910s, the concept of physiognomy and actually phrenology too were really prominent selling philosophies. Physiognomy specifically was the art of judging character from facial characteristics. And as a matter of fact, Ford Motor Company used it as a part of their selling methodology in the early 1920s. At the World Sales Congress in 1916, one of the keynote speakers was Grant Noblo, who was a known physiognomist and phrenologist at the time. Now, there's a book by Norris A. Briscoe in 1916 called Fundamentals of Salesmanship. It's a fantastic book. The whole book is great, except he's got a chapter in it that's talking all about physiognomy. And this quote really stood out to me because it's hilarious. It talks about recognizing a stupid face. All right, so quote number 4 is this from Norris Briscoe in his 1916 book, Fundamentals of Salesmanship. A stupid face has relaxed muscles, a half-open mouth, often one eyebrow higher than the other, and a vague and uncertain look which is directed to no definite point. Norris Briscoe, when you're going into a sales situation, was hoping to help you recognize a stupid face, and it's probably one to avoid. Let's go on to number 5. In the 1916 book, Around the World as a Specialty Salesman, A.E. Wright has a cartoon image in it and a quote that goes along with it, and it just cracked me up. The cartoon image is of an overweight gentleman who is bald with a little hair on the sides. He's got a mustache. In the picture, he's cross-eyed. He's holding a hat. He's holding a briefcase, and he's walking into a sales situation. And along with the cartoon, it has this quote. Number 5, if a man is bald-headed or bandy-legged, cross-eyed, or crooked-shouldered, he had better not try selling to ladies. So maybe that's true. I thought that was a funny one. That one was number 5, Around the World as a Specialty Salesman by A.E. Wright in 1916. Number 6 is from Nilus Oren Shively, and he wrote a book called Salesmanship also in 1916. Now, in one section, he spoke of the challenges of selling to the lumber industry and that sometimes you may need to be prepared to throw a punch or two. He tells a couple of stories about bully buyers that are basically manhandling him and pushing him out. And so in his quote, this one's number 6, he says this: "The salesman who turns and runs from a bully buyer will not get the business. This does not mean a salesman is to fight, but there are times where physical strength is as necessary as mental acumen." So that's number 6, Nilus Oren Shively in his 1916 book, Salesmanship. Let's go on to number 7, and this one is actually an advertisement that I found in a 1907 edition of Salesmanship magazine. And it was basically in every edition that year. But it was an ad by Pabst. So, you might know Pabst is the malt beverage company. They sell beer, Pabst Blue Ribbon. Well, they were advertising that you should be cracking open a beer before breakfast every day, encouraging salespeople to do that. So in quote number 7, it comes from that ad. It says this: "Every good salesman knows this, but at times, even the best business getters feel dull, languid, and tired. Don't lay off for a day, but drink a bottle of Pabst extract before breakfast." There's another tip for you. Drink a beer when you first wake up in the morning. It sets the stage for the whole day. All right, number 8. And this quote is kind of gross considering how we think about the role of sales leader today. I wrote a book called The Transparent Sales Leader that this is 180 degrees from. In this book, written by Walter Waterbury in 1909, the book was called Book on Selling. Walter felt that being an authoritarian was the best policy in sales leadership, especially when salespeople question your authority. Oh, Walter. Anyway, number 8. If his opinion differs from mine, he should appreciate that his responsibility ends when someone above him assumes it, and that he is only a working part of a machine. So that was number 8. I don't recommend that if you're a sales leader, but I thought that one was kind of funny. Number 9. And again, this is out of 10, so we're almost there. When does your appearance matter when you're hiring salespeople, right? We're taught that we need to clear that out, but Paul Nystrom wrote a book in 1919 called The Economics of Retailing, and he was talking about hiring salespeople. And he felt that when you're selling something that impacts personal appearance, you should probably be an example of a success story, right? So in his quote, number 9, here it is. The size, appearance, and figure of applicants for sales positions must be given careful consideration. A bald man selling a hair restorer would be a joke. So maybe that's a unique situation. I thought it was funny. But let's go on. Finally, number 10. And number 10, I also thought was interesting because in Elmer E. Ferris's 1924 book, Salesmanship, he talks a lot about personal hygiene. Now, some of this stuff should be well known, but especially this one. Like, did we need to be reminded that salespeople should clean themselves, quote, almost daily? And I know, and you read a lot about ice baths being all the rage today, but a cold bath in the morning? Well, Elmer Ellsworth Ferris seemed to think so. And here is his quote. This is quote number 10 from his 1924 book, Salesmanship. The body needs to be cleaned externally almost daily. In general, take a hot bath at night and a cold bath in the morning. So there you have it. While the era has some of the greatest sales philosophers of all time and the great writing, there were certainly a few odd things shared along the way. There's many others, but we'll stop there for today. Those are the top 10, my favorite weird quotes and ideas and concepts and methodologies from the early 1900s. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you can take a couple of tips from this, like, hey, those bowel movements, the thyroid, and hey, get ready to fight. If you could do all those things, according to these sales philosophers, you can't help but be successful. So thanks again, as always, for giving this a listen. Like always, if you've got ideas, please reach out. Please share. Please review this wherever you listen to it. And until next time, thanks again for listening.